The Camera2D node in Godot is really good and has some awesome functionality. When you add it underneath a sprite that's moving, it will move around smoothly if smoothing is turned on. And that's great. However, that has its problems. If the camera is nested too far underneath the player, it can be hard to animate in a cutscene, and it's not easy to reparent. For instance, if it's a multiplayer game and you need the camera, or you have multiple characters and the camera needs to shift around, or in a cutscene it needs to be animated, it can be difficult to find and animate. Also, if the player gets deleted, so does the camera, and that's no good. So I created a custom class called CameraContainer2D, and rather than completely making a new camera, this just adds functionality to it. Screen shake, switching targets for the camera, and multi-target tracking. Today we're just going to cover one target tracking for one player, but in future episodes we'll be adding camera screen shake and the multi-target tracking. So for now, let's just create the camera node, the CameraContainer2D node. So how we'll do that is we'll go up here and click the root node, click add node, click add 2D node. We'll rename it to CameraContainer2D. Then we'll add a script to it. Now we want this to be a custom class, because if it is, then we can just go over here to add create new node, and we'll be able to find it here in this tab by typing camera, and it'll appear here right next to Camera2D. So how we do that is we use this keyword called class name, class underscore name. Then we give it a name, which is CameraContainer2D. And we also want a custom icon, because that's cool. And what's more important, efficiency or style? Obviously style. We want it to look good. That's the most important thing. So how we do that is I created a SVG file called CameraContainer2D, and I created this in Inkscape. So if I open it here, you can see it in Inkscape. This is what it looks like. You can download it from my GitHub page. The link is in the description, and you can use it in your project. So what we'll do is we'll right click on it and click copy path, and add some quotes right there, and then Control V to paste it in. Now if we can hit Control S and save it, we can see it's not showing up. That's because of a glitch in Godot where you need to restart the project for it to actually show up. So we'll go to project, quit to project list, click yes, then open it again. And now you'll see it's right here. And if you think that's as freaking awesome as I think it's freaking awesome, then drop a freaking like, because that would be freaking cool. Thank you. Okay, now that that's out of the way, I'll explain how this actually works. What we're doing is we're setting the camera container to the player's position every frame, so in process. And then we'll add the Camera2D node underneath it and make and that way we still get the Camera2D's functionality of smoothly following whatever node it's a child of. However, if you just download this node, you don't know that there needs to be a camera underneath it. So what we'll do is we'll add that warning triangle like you see in Area 2D node when there's no collision underneath it. How we'll do that is with a function called getConfigurationWarning. And how this works is if you return a string with a warning with text inside, so add a Camera2D node, or just add a Camera2D with a text inside, then you'll see over here it doesn't run. That's because this function needs to be running in the editor. So how we'll make that happen is with the tool keyword. And what the tool keyword does is any code that's here in the script, it will run in the editor. So if we control save, you can see it shows up in the editor, and that's really awesome. It says add Camera2D. That's really cool. I love that. Like I said, polish over efficiency. Now we only want this warning to show up when we don't have a Camera2D underneath it. So what we'll do is we'll type if self.has node, and we'll know the name of it. It's Camera2D equals false. Then we'll return this message. Control X, Control V, and now it will only give us that warning when there's no Camera2D underneath. And if there is a Camera2D underneath, then we'll just return nothing. And that way, when we do it now, when we go over here and we drag the Camera2D underneath it, that warning goes away. That's awesome. I love that. Now, Camera2D, we'll just set its position to 0. The camera container, we'll drag it over this way. And now we can do the following part where it follows the player, because that's the most basic thing it needs to do. Now, like I said before, what we're doing is setting the CameraContainer2D's position to that of whatever our target is. And we'll need to do that every frame so it's smooth. So we'll use process, and then to make sure that this code doesn't run while the editor is running, we'll use engine editor hint. Okay, and if it's false, then that means the game is running and it's safe to run this code. Follow target. So let's create that function as well. And I actually want this function up here at the top because I think it makes the most sense right here. And then at the very top, I would add ready, but we don't need that. So we'll do func. And because it's a private function and it only runs here in the script, we'll put the underscore in the front. Next, we need a target to follow. So we'll type if camera target does not equal null, then set our global position to camera target global position. And let's create that variable by typing var camera target equals null. That way, sometimes we can have the camera not follow anything. For instance, we can set the camera to null if we're animating the camera and we don't want that code to run. Now all we need is a way to set what the camera target is. We'll go down here and create a function called setCameraTarget. And notice we don't have an underscore in the front because this code will be called by nodes outside of the script. So other nodes will call this function. And it needs some variables. New target. And I have these hints so that we can get hints for when we're calling this function, but really you don't need those. So you can just completely delete all of those and that's fine. But it's nice to have it as a little reminder for yourself. So this takes a node path, then scene transition types, and that's a vector too because we're using the tween node. And the tween node has two transition types, trans tween and then the ease in, ease out types, and we'll look at that in a second, but that's in a vector 2. And if you don't know, a vector 2 is basically an array that has 2 variables. Don't worry about it. If you don't understand any of this, just copy the code over into your game and use it. That's perfectly fine. So speed of transition, because it's a tween, I want to be able to call set the camera to follow a node, and then it will slowly transition over to that node. So we have camera target equals null, and then if new target does not equal null, so we are passing it a new target, then we'll get node tween. And actually, let's create that node tween. So we go over here let's go over here and in ready, right here, we'll do func underscore ready. We'll type pass for now and go up here and type self dot add child, and then we'll do tween dot new, and then we do want it to have a legible unique name, so we'll type true. Control S. Now this tween node will be added to the scene when we start, and this is something that is really cool to do. Instead of having this be a scene and then adding it to the scene whenever you need it, it can be a class and it adds the nodes it needs at runtime, and I think that's really cool, and it saves space and organization. So just add that to the top of the script, and when we run the scene, you can see over here in remote that that tween is added to the scene, and it has legible unique name because that variable we set was true. And that is really cool. So we'll go over here to the script again. And now we have a tween to work with. So get node tween, and then interpolation property, and that's when we actually interpolate it. So we do self, the property we're interpolating, and if you ever need to know what property you're interpolating on a tween, just hover your mouse over the property over here, and whatever that's called, that's the property you'll be tweening. So we'll go over here, and it's self, the starting value is our self global position. Then we'll get node, new target, global position, then speed of transition, and then transition types X and transition types Y. And I'll show you how to actually use this function in a second, but let's get through this. So get node tween dot start. After you set up the tween, what it's going to be running, you have to call start to actually set it in motion. Next, we'll use this function called yield, or coroutine, which is yield, and it gets the node tween and then tween complete, and that just stops this line of code running until the signal tween complete is actually called. So we'll wait for this tween to quit animating, then we'll set the camera target to equal the new target. So now that's that, we can actually use this in our game. So we'll go over here to level 1, and we'll uncomment this out because I was using it earlier. And we get CameraContainer2D, set camera target, and actually if we go over here into the player scene, I have the player sprite. Underneath that there's a position node, and you can see that position node is offset to the right. That's because I want the camera facing closer to where the player's looking. So I have that offset, and then when the player sprite is the transform is set to -1, then that position node is shifted over to the left. I'm losing my voice here. So the path we give it is like this. We have /root, and that, if we run the scene, you can see again in remote, the root node is the very, very top one. Not level 1, that's our scene node. That's the root node of our scene. The root node is the viewport. So we have root level 1 /shadow /player sprite /position 2D node. So that's the path I'm giving it. Then we have over here, we have vector2, and again, vector2 is just an array with 2 values. We have tween.transcubic and tween ease in out, and that makes it buttery smooth. Then we have over here, the speed I want to give it is, we'll do 3, sounds reasonable. So now when the scene starts, that will run and it'll be really nice. So run that. Ooh, pretty. Okay, here, I want to move the camera over a little more. Grab that, shift it over. We'll start the camera like right here. Run. Dang, boy, that's smooth. That's buttery smooth. So now when we run, there's that. And I think that's pretty cool. In the next episode, we'll be adding screen shake, and after that, we'll be adding multi-target tracking. So if you want to see that, go to the description and save the playlist for these videos. So when the next one's released, you can watch all of them. Until then, thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, share it with a friend so other people can enjoy it, because I think other people may find this video useful if you found it useful. So thank you for watching, God bless, and goodbye.